Okay, this video is going to be about new pages I made on Wikipedia in 2000, or I published on Wikipedia in 2021. And I'm going to start off by kind of going, so a lot of them were biography pages, and I've mentioned biographies and like I want to write biographies, and I'll specify here that I want to write biographies as in like I want to write books, biography books. And so that's one form of being a biographer. The other is being like a life biographer. So you commit to somebody for life, right? Like being a person's biographer for their life. And you could write more, like a biographer could write more than one book kind of thing. I'd be okay with either. Yeah. And I think there's, in the writers community, there's a whole bunch of lore, so to speak, around the connection between a biographer and the biography, the person who the biography is about. And so and I would really like to write some biographies. And so kind of here's my background before I jump into listing a whole bunch of like biography pages that I wrote, published, created in 2021. So when I was, so it started in like a publishable sense when I was 9 years old. I wrote a book of poems, and there was we had to write a page, or not a page, but we had to write in about the author section. So I just call it a book of poems, or the book of poems, something like that. It was my first book. I was 9 years old, and it was in about the author page, and it was like, it'd be fun to write, like, make this more, or it wasn't a page, it was like a paragraph, and I was like, it'd be fun to do more of this. Like, I like the documentation kind of side of the writing about oneself. So then I was 13 years old. I kind of took that seriously, and I helped. This is the closest I've gotten to like a formal book biography. So I was on yearbook. So like we got to choose the design of the cover. We got to choose the like layout of the book, stuff like that. There's me. This is the yearbook crew. That's me in the class of 2010 sweatshirt. So yeah, I was on yearbook. So I'm partially responsible for this yearbook. And that was really cool, and I really liked it, and I was like, I want bigger. See, there's this, and I was like, well, how can I make this yearbook even bigger? Because it's like a biography, but definitely not, but like it's about a bunch of people. So I wrote a one-page autobiography about myself, and I was like, I like this. It'd be cool to write like a book about myself, or maybe somebody else, but that's kind of weird. Like, how would you even do that? So I was on yearbook, helped make a literal yearbook, one-page autobiography. And then I was like, about this time, so 13 plus or minus few, yeah, I guess you could, the other way of doing this is like plus minus a few years. 2 doors down, we had a new neighbor to move in. His name is Charles R. Cross. Charlie Cross. He used to write articles for Rolling Stone magazine, and he wrote the biography of Jimi, Hendrix, and Curt Cobain. So, like, I live in Seattle. Like, it's a really freaking huge deal. Like, movie stars and music artists and stuff like that, they wanted to be written about by him. Like there's a Rolling Stone magazines, like, and then he was the biographer for 2 very big names, at the very least locally. And so that got me thinking on a whole new level. I was like, this stuff that I've been kind of thinking about since I was 9 years old, it's actually a possibility. And not only is it a possibility, here's a guy that lives 2 doors away from me who's done it. You know, kind of thing like that. And he had written at least, I think, the Jimi Hendrix biography when he moved in. I don't know chronologically where the Curt Cobain one falls. And so that's the origins of wanting to write a biography. Because I think that, well, okay, how would I make that happen then? That's kind of preoccupied my mind since I was 13 years old. And then when I was at the University of California, Berkeley, so I grew up in an aerospace household. My dad worked for Boeing, model maker, then strategic vision kind of stuff, strategic planning. And I'm a geologist, mathematician, physicist kind of thing. And I was at the University of California, Berkeley in the PhD program in geophysics, which was like, for geophysics specifically, was #1 in the world. For earth sciences, #2 in the world. And I used to swim. And there was this really weird thing that happened where Yulia Efimova, a Russian swimmer, competed at the 2016 Olympic Games. Okay, UC Berkeley is like 90% liberal, like in America, like American Democrats. And everybody loved Yulia Efimova. Like, she has a cult following of people, like, she was very mistreated by the American press. And in science, like, especially like in geology, in geophysics, we care about the ordering of things. And like the American press essentially launched, like, not all of it, but much of the American press launched a smear campaign to try and harm this woman's reputation. And she became this beacon of hope socially and culturally for a lot of the people I knew in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics who were dedicated to truth and accurate timing and timekeeping. Because what the press did was they tried to say, oh, she was banned longer than she was, when in reality, that was inconsistent with the truth. And so people actually started, if the press hadn't dragged her, she still would have had a following, but because the American press and Americans were being so rude to this person, she developed a very cultish following. And spoiler alert, some of my friends from UC Berkeley from that time in my life rationalized me quitting UC Berkeley with no degree as I left to write Yulia Efimova's biography. So this may or may not have come up in a conversation there about writing a biography for a swimmer, or maybe more than one swimmer, who's had a very large positive social and cultural impact. And so Yulia Efimova was one. Another one that the level of impact escalated to the same or potentially greater than Yulia Efimova's from the 2020 Summer Olympics was Emma McKeon from Australia. Like, kind of off the charts in my life and the social and cultural interactions I have. There are two swimmers that are very unique in the level of impact they've had outside of the swimming community. There's a bunch of people who've won a bunch of medals or set a bunch of world records, and they're like, I'm the first blank to set like a world record, or I'm the first blank to win this many medals, or I'm the first blank to win this medal, this medal, this medal combined. And that's just statistics. It doesn't actually, I have observed a lot of those people don't actually, it doesn't cross-correlate to an impact outside the swimming community, other than, wow, they won like 20 gold medals. Who cares? The kind of thing. So it doesn't actually mean they've had a positive social impact just because somebody's won like 20 gold medals. Kind of thing. Or even 5 gold medals for that matter. Like, yeah. So there's 2, and that's my history. It's a long introduction, but I kind of, yeah. So I'm going to try and go through this. I'm not going to write every page on the board because I wrote a bunch of pages. So the first category of pages I made was for academic, biography page. So I made a page for Elizabeth Niespolo. We were in the Earth and Planetary Science department at UC Berkeley together. I do know her. We're friends. Maybe not after making the Wikipedia page. But she was geology and geochemistry. I made the page on the 13th of May, 2021. And at that point, she was a postdoctoral scholar at the California Institute of Technology. She does geology and geochemistry. I was in geophysics. But she has a physics background before the geology and geochemistry. And then, like, astrophysics specifically. And she, starting this year, 2022, she's a professor at Princeton. So that was my academic, I just have one of those kind of page. I made a book page for Inseparable, this book. And I made the page on the 16th of November, 2021. Just one book page. It's a 2019 sports autobiography by twin brothers who were on the Seattle Seahawks. International sporting